Hi, I'm Rabbi Marc Kline, Monmouth Reformed Temple. This is Shabbat Shalom with a heart-healthy dose of Torah. The rabbis have lots of different, we call them hermeneutical principles, ways of studying and using the scripture. One of which is Ein Muchtam Ein Melchar, which means there's no before, there's no after, so that the literal text doesn't have to be read chronologically the way it's read for a purpose of teaching. So, an example, in one place in Exodus, we're told that the sins of the father are visited on the third and fourth generations, and the blessings inure to the 1,000th of generations. And then in Deuteronomy, we're told that no parent should die for the sins of a child, and no child should die for the sins of the parent. So those are in direct contradiction of each other. So one could argue that God is forgetful, saying something in Exodus and something different in Deuteronomy, or we can see that there's something bigger at stake, and we get that actually in this week's Torah portion. So in Parshat Tetzaveh this week, it's unique because Moses is never mentioned. And from the time that we meet Moses at the beginning of the book of Exodus, Moses is really in every Torah portion, every weekly portion, until we finish reading the cycle, except this week. And it's kind of clear that he's there because God's speaking to somebody and it's Moses on top of the mountain, but the name never happens. And so one of the great lessons from this contradiction in the text and this place where Moses isn't even mentioned is that we get a legacy. It's left to us. And whatever's handed to us, though, we get to choose. We have to choose what we do with it or how we ignore it. So, yes, we're left blessings, and yes, we're left challenges, but they're not the boundaries for how we can live and what choices we make. There's a wonderful story from the tradition, from the Talmud actually. Moses is taking dictation from God, and if you look at a Torah scroll, you'll see that the letters have little crowns, horns on top of them. And so Moses says, God, why do these exist? And God says, stand up and turn around, and you'll see. So he finds himself in Rabbi Akiva's yeshiva. And Akiva was roughly 1,900 years ago, Moses 30-something hundred years ago. And he doesn't understand anything that is being said, and he's getting really distraught because all of this Torah, and he doesn't get it. Until Akiva is asked from one of the students, where do you know this? And Akiva says, because we learned this from Moses at Sinai. And with that, Moses said, I'm not there anymore, but what I got and what I gave has taken on a life of its own, and people have lived it and learned it. So the same thing happens with people in our lives. We learn from the people who have come before us. They leave us. Their hands are no longer held in ours, but their hearts don't leave us, and the impression that they've made don't leave us. And so we have an obligation to make sure that we learn from where we've come, but also even more that we pass on something meaningful. We're told that we each are supposed to write our own Torah, our own book of life. And so we have to make sure that what we write on those pages are the things that we want people to really know and learn about us. And so we have to be careful that our actions write those words, and that the actions and the words are words we want to be read. It's time to start living intentionally for the good. It's time to see each other back as being human. So join us tonight, 7 o'clock, monmouthreformedtemple.org. We're going to celebrate Shabbat and celebrate Purim because the holiday of Purim is upon us. And I understand that Cantor and I are going to have this great Latke Hamantaschen debate. So join us for the fun and for the celebration, and remember to be blessed. Shabbat Shalom.